If you look at how schools are set up, and you go in there, you sit and the teacher tells you what they call facts. Okay. Now, if you sit there long enough and you're able to repeat that back to them, they give you a diploma. Okay. To which your ego tells you, I'm here in society that doesn't have this, diploma. I'm better than. And that's the ego trip that leads you into the pleasure trap.
Hi, and welcome back to the Natalie Rustic podcast. Today's guest is someone who has been on the show before. He's also stayed a friend of mine throughout this whole journey and has always been there to answer questions and give me guidance on my own journey. I'm so excited to announce that Jimi Wilson will be coming back on today to share the importance of critical thinking, self-actualization, spiritually transformative experiences, and how to step out of the box from the collective conditioning that we all know about. Jimi has once shared his past life regression, which enabled him to remember his NDE in a previous video. And so if you haven't seen that one, I will link it in the description box below for you all to have a look. But in the meantime, let's just jump right into the video.
How's life been to you? How's everything?
It's been up and down. To be honest, I've been a bit depressed. Something I don't really
Yeah.
like to bring up. I don't know if it comes across through things that I post or whatnot. I sort of give out little
We could
hints.
see a little. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But it's like
I
sometimes
know
I'm
you
like,
were going through a lot.
yeah, that's right. And it's a little bit of a cry for help, but I will tell you, Joe is quite amazing. He
Yeah.
really did help me. And all he did was he sat there and asked me questions, but he was so present in the moment. And he asked me if I'd actually ask myself the questions. And I was like, no, I haven't. I've never really asked myself why I'm feeling this way or what it is that's causing it or how to really go about fixing this situation. And like he just was there to kind of guide me through it myself. So it's not like he really
Yeah.
did anything necessarily. He just got me to ask my own self the questions, and it was really
He
good.
empowered you to help yourself.
Yes, that's what he did. Very, very
Yeah.
empowering. Yeah, because it's like I have the answers already,
Right.
and I just needed to bring it to the light and process it rather than avoid it like everybody does, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is really
that's
powerful.
what I'm doing myself now is that's my point of what I wanted to talk about here was how I'm able to now answer my own questions, whereas I before I had to go to the internet or ask somebody. They're being answered now
Mm,
um, by myself, and that's what Joe is very good at. That like that deals with that critical thinking of the where, what, how, and why I have
yeah.
information. You
Mm,
know, there is always something that's trying to steer you away from your greater good. And I know that with you, you were saying that, well, you had a problem with, it seemed like you had a problem with um, being lonely, right?
yeah.
And that is something that I deal with most of my life. But it's also, you got to look for it as a time to analyze your life. Okay. When other
Yeah.
people are around, you don't have that, and you're dealing with society. Excuse me. Sorry. But when you are alone, you can sit there and have some retrospective of what really happened in yourself and understand yourself better. So
Yeah.
from that loneliness, when you come through that, you'll be able to look back at that as a time where you grew the most.
In hindsight, when you're alone, it's the one time you get to process your emotions. You just can't do that when
Right.
you're around people. And then there's the people pleasing, right? So, like
Yes.
the ones that are like myself and you who have gone through difficult situations and didn't really know how to handle it, we tend to people please because we don't want the other person to feel the way we feel. And so we push our own emotions aside and our own feelings aside in order to make sure they're okay. And then when you go home, it's
Right.
like, oh, shit, here we go again. So,
Well, you're really avoiding it,
yeah,
is what you're
exactly.
doing. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe subconsciously, but you're avoiding the pain. So
Yeah,
you
that's right.
mask it with other people,
Yeah.
but it just, your brain when you're around other people is concentrated on the whole conversation. You're
Mm.
not in your head as much.
And another thing I wanted to bring up in this session is really conditioning. So, as
Hmm.
we're growing up, we've been conditioned not to ask questions. We don't think outside the box. We don't think about ourselves. We've just got to get to work, figure out, what we're going to do to make money, to get by through life, pay taxes, make a family, get into debt, figure out that debt. But we don't ever get taught to slow down and think, what's really going on.
Well, you're actually taught not to think in school. Um,
Mm,
if you look at, I was telling my daughter about this, if you look at how schools are set up, when you go in there, you sit and the teacher tells you what they call facts. Okay. Now, if you sit there long enough and you're able to repeat that back to them, they give you a diploma. Okay. To
mm,
which your ego tells you, I'm here in society that doesn't have this, diploma. I'm better than. And that's the ego trip that leads you into the pleasure trap. The pleasure trap is basically the everything is the matrix program is pop culture.
mm,
Um, it is you're climbing the social ladder, which has no end to it. When you get up a step, you want the next step, right?
mm.
So you're never satisfied in life. You're
That's
trying
right.
to you're trying to compete with your neighbor instead of worrying about your own soul, growth. So
Mm,
this is when people get into this. If if you're not living your light, if you're not living your soul's growth, you're living your darkness. And the
yeah.
longer you stay in that, the further away from your path, your true path in this life is.
Mm,
So at this point, your higher self is up there watching you wasting time and getting further and further away from your job. So
mm,
now is when, at least with me, they made life very difficult. Like nothing I did worked, and it kept getting worse and worse. And till finally you just throw your hands up and say, none of this is working. This is not the way to go. I don't care how society tells me to live. Not making me happy, and it sure doesn't look like it's making these people happy.
mm.
That's when, for me, I decided that I needed something different. And that was this, soul path that I'm on now.
Do
So
you think, Jimmy, that during the times of hardships that you just mentioned, do you think that they're necessary in order to have the spiritual awakening?
for me, it was. I
Mm,
mean, everybody's different. I know some people don't go through that, but a lot of people do. I had to go through, not even just, I was suicidal. I had attempted it through twice. And the third time, I knew in that car accident, my life was in imminent danger and I did nothing to save myself. Okay.
mm,
Somehow I survived these things. And I just, after that last one, there's no way I should have survived that accident. Okay.
yeah.
Like, and not been a vegetable, to drive 75 mile an hour to a block of concrete, flip 7 times and catch fire and not be in a
And here
wheelchair
you
dead.
are.
Yeah. So I saw that was like, wow, if they're trying to get my attention, I don't want them getting madder. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't
That's
listen to
right.
this, I don't know what the next one would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what woke me up. So yeah,
Yeah.
it took me a long time to say yes. It took me tremendous darkness, and I think if you look back to all the people that are awakening now, that are in, you know, and where you and I are at, most of them woke up during the COVID pandemic, right? In
Yeah,
2020, when all that, if you look back, a lot of them in 2020 woke up.
that's
So we
right.
all had the time to sit there because we, you know, everything was locked down. And the people who took that time to deal with this, your heart, your
Mm,
soul, I think, you know, now you're seeing them. I mean, the
that's
ones
right.
that woke up and whatever, now they're back into that matrix program.
And see, that's
You
why
know,
I love having these conversations, because we can share with these people who may be on our path or not quite close to us, but want to find out more. I think it's really important in this day and age to get the word out there, to let people understand we need to wake up. And now is the time to ascend. And especially with
yeah.
what Joe said in the last podcast was quite disturbing when he mentioned that if we don't ascend, unfortunately, it's game over. And so I
How's
wanted to
that?
bring up, yeah,
How did he mean by that?
so we need to ascend to higher levels of consciousness or to vibrate higher, because the earth is also vibrating at a higher rate too. And so if we don't vibrate with the earth and change our consciousness along with the earth's consciousness and everything around us, then we're not going to be able to survive it. It just won't work.
Well, from what I was told, we are not we, but our you know, our subconscious higher self is given a
Mm,
choice to ascend or not. The ones who do go to the new earth and the ones who decide that they're not ready for this, they move instantly to another planet similar to this. Like they won't,
mm,
it'll be instantaneous, and to them it'll be seamless. To both of us,
mm,
actually,
yeah.
whoever goes up and down. But they will move on to another third density planet like what we're on, and then they will continue the cycle till they are ready. But now
Yeah.
I I want to say this to, because I was talking about some the other day where somebody mentioned that they were getting frustrated with people who were not believing these stories, the ones who weren't awakened to this,
Mm,
and they're not believing these stories, these incredible stories. So today I tell they is A, it's not our job to make anybody believe anything. If you're doing it right, the people who see the changes in you, the happiness in you will come to you for advice. You don't have
mm,
to go to them. Like a church tells you to go out and find people. You don't do that. They will find you naturally. So when different timelines work, okay, everything is happening now because time is an illusion. So right now in this reality where you and I are talking, we're awakened, okay, and other people uh, who aren't are not believing us. Now, in other realities, it is they who is awakened, and it's us who don't believe their story. If you want, I'll explain to you my understanding of timelines real
yeah,
quick,
go for
okay?
it.
So how this would work is, say, okay, so you, Natalie, are driving to a store, okay? And you come up to a stop sign, you make a left-hand turn. At that point, now you're on your main timeline, okay? And that's like, imagine a tree, okay? That's your main timeline. And at this point, an alternative timeline starts where you made a right-hand turn. Those are branches that come off of your main timeline. And you can have an infinite amount of timelines that come off. Now, you
Mm,
are not conscious of the one that made a right, okay? So when now this guy plays out his, or this you plays out the right and the left. Now the left-hand guy, when he gets to that destination, and then the guy who went right gets to the same destination, both timelines merge back into one, okay? And at this point, all the information that the guy who went right now comes to you, okay? So now, if a major event that happened to the guy right happened earlier, and then you see it happen to you because you went left, it happened later, the same event, you're going to experience that as a Mandela effect. You're going to say, oh, I had a
Right.
premonition. I had a premonition of this and that. You didn't, you actually lived it. Okay. Now, if that
Yeah.
event doesn't happen to the guy on the left and only the guy on the right, you're going to have um, the ideas, you're going to have the information, but no context on how it happened, right? You're going to say, I
Yeah.
know this is weird and I can't explain why I know this. And that's that timeline bleeding back into you. So at the end of your life, and I've not heard anybody mention this in their NDEs. So I assume this is a step after you have your life review, this the second life review. You know, when
Mm,
they tell you that you've done enough, you don't have, and you finally don't go back. You know, when you
mm.
hear everybody say that, it's not your
Yeah.
time.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So at that second one, at the second life review, all of these, because you at the second one, I'm told you speak with the ascended masters and everything, excuse me,
Mm,
and you go about preparing your next life. All of this information gets culminated into one, all those infinite realities. And you can then see where you should have made a right, where your free will took you here. But if you would have made that right-hand turn, this could have happened. And all this stuff. By making that left-hand turn, if you made that right, all the bad stuff that could have happened. So you can analyze an infinite amount of lifetimes in this
mm.
one.
Do you think that it's possible that we could somehow, in a way, access those other lifetimes through maybe astral projection or like yourself, past life regression? Or do
Yeah.
you think that there's a possibility there's avenues that we can take to see these other realities or parallel versions of us?
I mean, through remote viewing, I know a lot of people do fantastic things like that. They're able to see. A lot of people, when they're channeling, are
Hmm.
able to see in alternate dimensions and stuff like that. Like I've
Yeah.
gotten information back that I had, well, the one I was on Mars and it was a big thing, but it was in a dimension where the moon, or in a reality where the moon had been blown up,
Wow.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So I got one question. So after what I said to you about all the timelines converging, right? Now think about this. You have a subconscious that's up there in the sixth, seventh density, wherever they are. Now you're living on, at the same time, on multiple dimensions and multiple realities and an infinite amount of timelines, all at the same time and flourishing. I'm asking, how powerful of a being do you think you are?
Oh, that would just be incredible. It would, and the first thought that popped into my mind is, was that the ones who created the pyramids? Did they have the answer? Like, I think it would be absolutely
Well, they are
incredible.
us. They who built
Yeah.
the pyramids are us. I mean, we're
Yeah.
just keeping coming back, right? You come back from
Right.
lifetime to lifetime. So here's the other one. So now you see how powerful you are. Now all of this, that's just the one Natalie Rustichelli show. Okay.
Yeah.
In an infinite amount of lifetimes, past and future. All of that, Natalie, oh, it doesn't even accumulate to a fraction of the total you. So they say
Yeah.
none of us come from Earth originally, right? And I'm finding out that now none of us come from this universe either. None of us
Oh,
originated in this universe.
yeah. I haven't
So it
heard that
goes
one
back
before.
further than, yeah, it goes back further than anybody can imagine. So that was so that's all right. So here's imagination. Well, well anyway, we'll get that in later. Go ahead. I'm sorry now.
No, I love this. I think that you're onto something here. You can take the stage as long as you like, because I just, the reason I had you on this podcast, Jimmy, is because every time I have a question to something, you're always the person who is right there with an answer, whether it be, about past life regressions, UFO sightings, aliens, the post that I just made on Facebook not long ago, what was it? Could someone please explain to me what a walk-in is? There you are again, you know
Oh yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I'd say I got addicted to this very fast. That happened on the winter solstice, actually in 2020, like the night
Yeah.
before. And then when I woke up the 21st of December, I was addicted to that. I told you that story where I saw that video, that guy. I was just addicted. But here, let me tell you, what happened on the end of this last January, beginning of February. I'm sitting outside and like not 15, 20 feet in a tree, this hawk just boom sits there and it's just staring at me like this. And I'm looking at, I've never been that close to one, even in a zoo, right? And I'm going like, this is a message, right? So I mean, he was there long enough that I got up, took a picture, sat down, got back up, walked over there, took a picture, sat down. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him in my head and I'm trying to look at him, but it was a real cloudy day and the sun was behind them. And even though I couldn't see it, it was just so bright that my eyes were watering. And finally, in my head, I said, listen, I got the message. I'm glad you were here. I can't stare at you. It's hurt my eyes, but thank you. Right. At that moment, the hawk puts his head down like this and then just swoops off and leaves. Just like he
Wow.
heard everything I said. Not that he nodded his head or nothing. He just put his head down like this, looking at me and just left. So I looked it up and the spiritual meaning of a hawk visitation. And it said that I had crossed a threshold of some kind and that my imagination would open up in ways that I never thought possible. And I've never been accused of not having an incredible imagination. So I'm like, how much can this get? How much worse? I mean, how much, not worse, but how much broader can this get? And the next day, I'm with a couple friends of mine, you're having lunch, and these two girls I went to high school with. And it seemed just like you said, like every question they had, I was just throwing the answers. And when they had a rebuttal, I had that. And it was like I never talked that way and been able in a conversation. Like it made sense in my head, but I couldn't bring it out
Yeah.
right. And as I'm talking, I'm going, holy shit, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was like that. And so so a few days later, and you can edit this out if this isn't for yourself. But a few days later, one of those same girls, I had gotten a this chocolate bar with psychosilla magic mushrooms in it, right? You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Uh, I don't know if you've ever done them before. No?
No, not myself, no.
Okay. So I'll explain to you. What it does is, you see shapes, things move, and it opens the doors of your mind, the perception to one time I was able to understand the true reality of God, like the essence of what God was. Okay.
Wow.
While I was on these mushrooms. So this night I get them and it's been a long while since I use them. I even called my friend John to tell him. For some reason I always call John to tell him
Is
everything.
that John Glasspool?
Yeah, yeah, John
Yeah.
Glasspool.
Hi, John, if you're watching this, we
Hey
love
John.
you.
Sorry for bothering you with all my problems. But I call him and tell him this, what I'm doing. And before I take it, I set my intention to get a message, whatever it is that I need to know right now. So I eat this chocolate bar, and about an hour or two into this, all that, I'm seeing things doing this, and I feel the effects. And then I'm noticing my thoughts are not changed at all,
Yeah.
right? I'm still thinking broad, but it's not broadening it at all. Like my mind is already broadened, right? Without the medication. So I go to bed and the next morning I wake up, and that's, the idea I have in my head is that I don't need to take things like this anymore because my mind is already doing what that drug does for you artificially, right?
Wow.
So as I think this, I go take 2 steps and my phone goes ding, and I just, oh, there's John. Not let me go see who's calling me. I knew it was John. And I pick
Yeah.
up the phone and he wrote down the exact thing that I was just thinking. You don't need this anymore. Your brain's already, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, all right, that's my message. So yeah, that's after that hawk, it seemed like all that, and
Yeah.
the part about imagination. So what I was saying, I mentioned, I might have mentioned on your show before, was I got this download that was your limitations on reality is what limits your reality. Okay.
Yes.
So if you believe that something is something, then it is in your reality. If you believe
Mm.
something can happen or something can happen, then now it is in your reality. And this is why they tell people don't label things, because you're limiting what that is to yourself.
Mm.
If, let's say, your neighbor Bob is an asshole and you say, oh, Bob's an asshole. Now everything Bob does is only going to serve as proof to you, more proof that he's an asshole, or you're not
Mm.
going to want to hear about, yeah, so what? Bob saved some kid up in the tree. So what? He's an asshole, right? So you have limited your reality. Now,
Yeah.
Bob might be that way, and that might be a good choice. But if you do this without everything in your life, you label everything,
Mm.
and you're limiting your entire life to everything, right?
Gosh, this is so
Essentially.
powerful. Yeah.
So in imagination, when they were saying my imagination would broaden, when you are remembering things, or no, I should say, when you are imagining things, um, you can't imagine anything that doesn't already exist. And if you do imagine something that does, you have now created that in the
Yeah.
fourth density or in the spirit realm. In there,
Yes,
your thoughts
yes.
your
That's right.
thoughts are instantaneous. They
Yes.
take longer in this because of the density and how everything is time slows down. It takes longer here to manifest your thoughts. So, with that, when you are imagining anything, you're essentially remembering yourself, right?
Wow.
You're not thinking of just random bullshit that means nothing. You
Mm.
are remembering. You are breaking out of the matrix program. So the broader your mind gets, the broader your world gets.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why these podcasts are so important because they're opening our minds to a new perspective. What tips and
Yeah.
tricks do we have in order to open our mind to more avenues, to more knowings? I'm just loving this conversation. Is this
Well, I love
part
you too
of
now.
this is why I had to have you here, Jimmy. You're just
I
incredible. I'm just
am smooth
amazed.
sometimes.
Yeah. Can I ask you? I remember on our last podcast, you mentioned that you would talk to the sky in order to connect to your guides. Do you
Yep.
still do that? And also, have you
Yes.
had any new experiences since then?
Yeah, I talk to this guy all the time. I don't talk out loud, you
Mm.
know. I mean, they can hear anything. Any thought you've ever had in your lifetime. Um, they already know that in the past life. They know us better than we know ourselves in ways that
Mm.
we could never know ourselves. So,
Yeah.
I think knowing that for all the love and light community that's out there just thinking happy thoughts, You're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot that people that you hear a lot, just think happy things and your life will be rainbows and all that. And what the problem is, and that's great. What you're doing is you're shutting off negativity. You're choosing not to see it. And all you're doing is getting weaker while the negativity's over there doing push-ups. Okay?
Yeah,
And when
that's
the
right.
negativity finally does show up to your door, you ain't going to know how to handle it. So that's all they're really. I mean, it's great to talk all that and everybody feels great and you can, but it's not reality. And I think when you do finally leave here, those people will possibly get a rude awakening, knowing that there's both positive and negative on this planet, and you chose to fear something. You don't overcome anything by avoiding anything or fearing it.
I mentioned to you at the very start of this podcast that I myself am suffering depression at the moment. And part of the reason why I feel like, I know I've gone through a great deal, but my inner person, the person that I know to be Natalie, is loving, is fun, is kind, is giving, is goofy, and likes to laugh. And so I often wonder, like, why is there this heavy burden? But during my awakening, if that's what you'd like to call it, I've been learning that I have to be positive and I have to be good and I have to be giving and kind and caring and just focus on all those positive things, that maybe my darkness is trying to make its way back in to say, hey, it's time to face your fears. No more,
Yeah.
you know, don't pretend that we don't exist because we're here. And so that brings me to talk about balance.
Well, you just answered your own question. Just letting you know that's how it works. You have to trust your intuition. You're going to
Yeah.
understand yourself better than anybody else. So you have to
Yeah.
trust yourself. And what you just did right there is a perfect example of what we
Yeah.
all need to do. Well, what you it is for me, I know that I can either follow my ego or my heart. Okay.
Mm.
And you can tell the difference in which one you're following. Your heart will, steer you towards your greater good, but you might not
Yeah.
want to hear what your heart has to say all the time because it's going to speak the
Yeah.
truth. Your ego is going to tell you how great you are and how special you are and all that. And then it's going to steer you into that downward depression. There is no pot of gold there that they're offering you. You're playing your ego, and all of that is words, and words are just words. It doesn't have meaning to
Isn't
it.
that incredible? So it's the love that's going to give you the hard truth where it might hurt. And it's the ego that
Yeah.
gives you the what you want to hear during times where you need to hear what love is trying to tell you. So
Yeah.
that is an incredible balance. And you need to really kind of listen to both in order to have this human experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I know that if I'm like watching something that I'm getting like really good information, I'll notice my ego starts taking over, right?
Mm,
And I'll start thinking all these things, and now it's taking me away from that information because my mind's on, oh, how this and this. And then what I do now is I just say over and over, ego go. I just scream that ego go, ego go, ego go. I just keep doing it over and over and over again until I stop thinking about that, whatever it is, and I go
yeah.
back to my work. I mean, that's what I just started doing, but seems
Yeah.
to work because
Affirmations. Yeah. Powerful.
I just keep saying it because if I'm saying that, then whatever is being said by my ego, I can't hear it anymore. So
Yeah.
and then
That's
I go back to
incredible.
going back to what I was doing. Yeah.
I want to switch gears just a little here. So you mentioned the other day that you saw some things in the sky. Now,
Oh, yeah.
yep, I will tell you a story of mine that happened to me as I was a child, and now that I'm an adult, I can remember. And I have shared
Yeah.
this once on my podcast. I can't remember who with. And I'm not sure if I told you or not on Messenger, but I will share it again. So when I was younger, I went on a plane with my dad and my brother, and we went to the Philippines. And during the flight there, I looked out the window and I saw this pyramid structure following the plane, but it was stationary, almost as if we were connected to it and moving together. And the pyramid structure, it looks like a concrete-ish like color, but dark, kind of murky. And it had sort of patterns on it and imprints. And now that I'm older, I've learned how to meditate. So I've been meditating for years now. During a meditation, a memory came back, a few memories came back actually, and I remembered that. And the most interesting thing that I thought of is, why did I not say anything when I was on the plane? And why was I so mesmerized by it? And why do I remember that now? And what was it?
Yeah. A TR3B, it's a government, that's the government. If they had writing and stuff and patents on the side, that's not
Yeah.
extraterrestrial.
Mm,
Um, all that is back engineered from things like the Roswell crash and all the crashes that we never even heard of. We heard of one, but there's been, thousands of them all
yeah.
over the world.
Right.
So they are those triangles. That's your government. And there's a lot in Australia. The
Right.
American and Australian government, and the English government is like the triangle of doom, I think.
That is
I
so
don't know.
interesting because I haven't actually done any research into it. So I'm glad
What
I
year was
brought it
that?
up. So
What
I was in grade 5 at the time, which means I would have been about 10. I'm now 31. So it's about 20 years ago.
2003? Around there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it would make sense. I know
Yeah.
that with oh again the whole conspiracy thing, but with 9/11, um, everybody knows that that was the building that held all well, the night before, I forget his name now, Rumsfeld had put out that they lost $2.1 trillion. Now that was all
Mm,
money that was used for the secret space program. So the
yeah.
information for that was held in not just the Twin Towers, but building number 7. So when he took them down, all of a sudden building 7 went down for no reason. Never got hit by a plane or
Right.
nothing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Hey. And so that wiped out any evidence of that money. And what was also happening, you can look this up, is Dr. Stephen Greer, Dan
Mm,
Willis is another guy. They were in the Disclosure Project at the time. They have
yeah.
all this information back then, and they were disclosing all that to Congress and to the American government. And what happened after 9/11? That stopped, and we went to war with whoever, right? So now it is 20 years later, and we're back to this again.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to put that out there, but
I'm
that's basically.
definitely happy to. And it's funny, I saw a video about the 9/11. I thought
You can
that
look this up.
yeah, yeah, I'm actually interested too. I'm getting more into all these conspiracy theories because I'm starting to see one thing at a time that everything is connecting, everything is starting to make sense. And even with, extraterrestrials or UFOs, NDEs, out of body experiences, secret space program, like all of these things are actually connected.
Yeah,
And this came to my attention when a man I interviewed just recently, he had a near-death experience and saw light beings, and after his experience was able to find and locate UFOs, and he was the one who was able to know where they were energetically. He was drawn to go there. So I'm like,
really.
there's something
What
more
was he
going on.
doing? Was he remote like meditation or to do it?
Good question. It was just he said it was like a pull, like he just had an urgent sense to go to this
Right,
destination, and he would drive like hours to just this place, and there would be people doing CE5 contact. And for those
right,
of you watching who may not know what that is, it's where a group of people get together, they meditate, and they put intentions out to spotting UFOs, and it's like a contact form of getting to know who they
yeah,
are, where they are.
yeah. It's a group
Um,
meditation. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. But he just knew to go there. And while they're doing their meditation here, he's just walking over and goes, there they are. And he was right, spot on. He just knew where they were.
Oh, get out.
So there's some
Oh my
correlation
God.
here, and I'm just so into finding out what's going on. I want to know more. I want to dive deep. And so yeah, that's why I brought that up and wanted to talk a bit about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so you mentioned you saw something not too long ago with your daughter.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was not this last Friday, the Friday before. We were in this room actually watching a movie, and it got over about 20 after 8, and I go out in the back on the deck on the back of the house, and I live next to a lake. There's a lake like maybe 100 feet or so away, and or 200 maybe. But I'm out in the back deck, smoke a cigarette, and I just, as soon as I look up, it was like you've seen the North Star before, how it looks like
Yeah.
twice as big as the rest of the stars.
Yeah.
This one looked bigger than that and brighter than that, and it was moving too slow to been a plane, right? I'm
Mm.
watching this thing, it was so big, and it went like this, and I I'm like, if you're, and I'm thinking in my head, if you're a UFO, man, just please do a zigzag or something. I just want to know, want to know that you're real, right? And I'm like, holy shit. And I call my daughter. I'm like, Jordan, get out here. And she runs out. What's the matter? And I says, look. She's, oh my God, this thing, it was moving. It slowed right down over that lake. Now it was a few hundred feet in the air and stops, right? And it stopped for like 2, 3 seconds. And all of a sudden, and like, I don't know if you've ever seen a tracer bullet at night, like when people are shooting guns at night, like every fifth bullet's a tracer, so they can see where they're aiming. But you'll see a flash of light going like a
Oh,
bullet.
yeah, yep, yep.
Okay, that's what happened. It went straight up on an angle, like in a north direction. And I turn
Wow.
around to my daughter. Did you see that? And she goes, look, there's more. And sure enough, there was three smaller ones. These ones looked like the size of a star that you would see at night. They slowly, one at a time, pulled right up to the same spot, stopped, and went boom. The next one, same thing, three in a row. And
Wow.
I turned around to her and I picked her up and hugged her. I said, oh my God, we finally did it. We saw it and all this. I said, Jordan, now tell me, what was that? She goes, Dad, there is no other explanation in the world for what we just saw than that. So, of course, I told my parents and they rolled their eyes. But when my daughter came in and told them, they were like, really? Jordan, really?
Yeah, right.
Told you people. So, yeah. And that was, so what happened was 2 weeks earlier, this was even more incredible. 2 weeks earlier, Joe's book, um, the one he had the channeled messages from
The
Orion,
Ascension Guide.
the Ascension Guide, that's it. I had read the whole book last summer, except for maybe the last 15 pages or so, right?
Mm.
And my eyes have been going in and out, so I couldn't read so well. And I found some glasses anyway, and I read this book all the way to the end this one night. I put the date on it, right? Now, at the end of this book, he describes this building with this crystal and the light coming through where there's glass in the building so that the sun is always shining on that crystal, this giant crystal
Wow.
in the center of the room. And I'm having a picture of this. So I walk outside, same thing, go smoke a cigarette, and I sit up like this. And as soon as I look up, I see this thing, this star gets really bright and then goes away. And I'm like, what the hell was this? And I remember like, again, John, I text John, guess what right? I put the phone down and I look over this way. It was a full moon. And this time I saw the whole shooting star. This thing came across the entire skyline. Just, you could see the flame shooting off the back. And then when it got past the moon, it just fizzled out. Like it just burned out.
Wow.
So I sat there and actually, John just texted me just now. I
Hey,
mentioned his name
John.
and he texted. So it burned out, and that's when you make a wish on a shooting star. And my wish was I want to see Joe's crystal, that room. But it was wild that
Wow.
it happened just as I just finished that book.
That's
And then I missed the
incredible.
first one. They were going in different directions too. Like I didn't know what
Mm,
the first one was, so they sent another one coming in a whole
yeah.
different. Like anytime I could be wrong about this, but I thought comets and all when they're in a cluster, they're all going the same direction. This
Yeah.
one went east to west, and then the second one, like a minute later, went from north to south.
Wow.
So I, I imagine, you know, that that must have been a message. I
Yeah, I
can't
think
imagine
so
it
too.
happening that way,
And
you
Joe
know.
said to me, because I just uploaded his podcast that we did a few days ago. I
Oh,
asked
you put it
him,
out?
yeah, I had some issues. I told him, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm having some issues with my computer, but a friend of mine just fixed it. So I
Ah,
was able to upload it, which is really awesome. And then I get to talk to you
oh, I
now,
didn't
which is
see it.
great. Yeah, I only
Yeah.
just posted
Did
it
you?
about 10 minutes ago before our podcast. So
Oh, okay, okay. I
yeah,
got you.
yeah. But yeah, I asked Joe, how do you get messages? Like, how do you connect to your guides? Like, how do you get all the clairs, clairaudient, clairsentient? Um, and he said, he gave us a couple of tips, but he also said for those who don't necessarily hear, feel, touch, sense, smell their guides will send you messages in other forms, and it could be just right in your face, and it's just right there, like a message would be on the wall somewhere,
Yeah,
wherever it is that you may be. And in your case, that shooting star, because
yeah.
it meant
I
something
see a
to
lot
you.
of synchronized. I see synchronized numbers a lot, and I'll know
Yeah.
they don't even have to be synchronized anymore.
Mm.
Um, like I saw just a random number, but it was sitting there on this movie, just sitting there, and I'm like, all of a sudden, isn't that weird? There's just a number sitting there. And this thoughts in my head. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
that's weird. So I look it up, and that I got some. That's I that's all I do is I look up the spiritual meaning of whatever that number is, and
Yeah.
it used to be
And
synchronized. Now it's not. It's anything.
And synchronicities can also come in the form of people, places, situations, music, like you were having a thought about John and he's texting you on the phone right now. So there
Right.
must be some significance to that. And so
Well, there
you,
are no coincidences.
that's
Okay.
right. That's
If
right.
God is perfect and God made a perfect world, right? Everybody believes that, no? Even the church will
Mm,
tell you that. So then how
yeah.
could everything not be perfectly in time?
Exactly. And in saying that,
Yeah.
if we are perfect and God doesn't make mistakes, which is also what Joe spoke to me about, I think this may have been after the podcast when we were doing this little session. Um,
Mhm.
he did say to me, did God make mistakes? Do you think God made a mistake? And I was like, no. And he says, well, you're not a mistake and you have a purpose to why you're here. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. It's so beautiful. And so there's so much truth to that. He's,
Wow, there
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
There is. I mean, these are all things that people know. They just need to be reminded of, you know.
Mm, yeah,
Just how powerful of a being you are. Think about what I said about the culmination of the Natalie show, right? And how
yeah.
powerful you are. Now, you'd have to be a god to be able to live and flourish from all those dimensions and stuff.
Mm,
So you would have to ask yourself, what could any negativity do to me that I didn't allow them to do?
right.
And the answer is nothing. In
Mm,
some way you accepted this,
yeah.
either before you came here you accepted it or whatever it is, but you've allowed this in
Mm.
some way.
And it
I
all
know a lot of
starts.
people are going to hear that, get mad, and I didn't want this and I didn't. Well, everything is a learning experience. If you want to get mad at it and you don't want to learn about nothing or grow from it, then get mad at it. You're just going
Mm,
to see it happen to you again. you know
exactly. And that's where love
and
comes in with the
and it'll be
hard
worse.
lessons. Right.
I'll
Oh,
tell you this on that, because in my past life regression, see my accident that was be 3 years ago tomorrow, as a matter of fact, the 23rd.
happy
Um,
anniversary.
Thank you. So what happened was 3 years before that, I got into another major accident where I drove 50 mile an hour into an oak tree, right? But I
Oh,
walked away from it. I'll show you a
wow.
picture. All right, this is another accident that nobody should have survived because um, when I got out, I had to go to the hospital, and when I got out, my friend who picked me up says I was told by the police officer at the scene and the EMT at the scene to tell you this. They both came to me separately and said that they have never in their lives seen anybody survive an accident like yours, much less walk away from it. So
Yeah.
the cop was so shocked, he didn't even give me a ticket. He said to me, he shook my hand, he says, there is something here. You're meant to be here. He goes, that is, he just was beside himself. So what I did that time was everybody was telling me, you're here for a reason. I kept hearing that.
Mm.
You're here for a reason, all this. So um, what I did, so one night I did this much times, but I got drunk at the bar. And when I got out on the road, I went 100 mile an hour and shut my lights off and just drove like at
Wow.
that speed. And finally, I turned them back on when I got to this light. So one day when I'm sober, I'm like, man, what the hell am I doing? I just didn't think I could die. I was like, I can't die, and my ego took over. In other words,
Yeah.
I went back and I actually tracked the miles. I went 5 miles without my lights on, doing 100 mile an hour. That was my reaction. I mean, I did a whole lot of other things, but I'm saying I didn't take it the right way. And that came out in my past life regression that I was supposed to wake up then. And I didn't.
Yeah.
So my next accident, I went 75 mile an hour onto a concrete block. And
Mm.
I didn't walk away unscathed from it. So there is an example of not listening and them coming back to you to get your attention the next time. Because now I can't play the guitar anymore.
Yeah.
And I
Aw.
shatter my hand and that's gone. So
Yeah.
if I would have listened the first time,
Yeah.
you know,
You don't have to answer this question, but it's just something that I intuitively thought to ask. And that is, do you have any tips or insights you could give to us and the viewers watching how to be aware of the signs and when to wake up for those who haven't fully awoken yet, or those who might want to know the signs? Looking back on your past life regression, did you notice anything at all, any patterns?
well, you have to know that everything is a lesson. I
Mm,
mean, anything. When you walk out and something just randomly happens to you, it's not random.
mm,
There are no coincidences. So when you see something odd, that's a message, and you can then analyze that. You know, and if you do just a little bit every day, your higher self is going to show you a little bit more the next day.
mm.
And if you expand on that, and if you implement this stuff into your daily life, that's what you really need to do. We can all talk all we want, but if you're not living, walking the walk,
Mm,
so as more that you do that, the broader it becomes, and you build
yeah,
on that. It's like a plant when it grows, it's only this big, but as it gets bigger, all parts of the plant are growing. So it's
yeah,
massively getting bigger. You know what I
that's
mean?
right.
As you build more knowledge. Um, so here's what I did a lot of um like like retrospective thought on the things that I was good at as a child naturally, right?
Mm,
Things that the rest of the kids, I was better than the rest of the kids in school, just naturally, or I had a natural interest in something. And the
mm,
two things were music, like playing music, and geometry. Okay.
yeah,
And geometry, I always thought my whole life took me into my construction career because of it's the study of shapes, right?
mm,
But now that I'm thinking properly, I realized what geometry really did. and that is teach you critical thinking. And
Yeah.
that's what's bled out of you in school. The
Mm.
who, what, where, when, and why of everything that you're taught.
Yeah.
Okay. So in geometry, what they do is, and it's the same thing I do in my studies here in the spiritual, is they give you a list of facts, that are easily verifiable.
Mm.
A triangle is a triangle because all three sides equal each other, right? Stuff like this.
Mm.
Easily verifiable. With that, you're able to prove other things. You could say because of rule 1, 2, and 3, this, and this, that makes rule number D also true. You can do that.
Yeah.
Now, without being told anything by anybody, you are able to know that D is true. I'm just speaking in broad terms. I'm not being specific. So this is the same thing I use in this. I know that this, and this is true already. And you
Mm.
build on that. And then when you find out something else that is a fact, you add that to your list.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done, you have a whole list of things that are true, and you don't need other people telling you anything anymore.
Yeah.
So that's how I did it, and that's how I build that. And I believe that's why that is purposely taken out of people in school. The
Yeah,
the
that's
higher
right.
education that you get, the further into that pleasure trap you get. You don't need to know the who, what, where, and why. Okay,
Mm.
you're being rewarded for just repeating what somebody else told you your
That's
entire life,
right.
right? So not only that, those people with those degrees are the ones running the countries. They're the
Mm.
ones running your town.
Yeah.
Right? So in effect, the least spiritually evolved people that there are, not everybody. I'm not painting that brush with everybody. I'm just saying in general, that's those people.
Mm.
And
Mm.
now when you see that, you can look around and see, oh, that's why this is this way.
That's
This
right.
is this way on purpose. How could God create? You know what I mean? This is on purpose. Everything in this society is, if you'll look, it's always kept the shit's always kept to shoe level, right? It's never so good that we have time to think about ourselves and our children and all that, because that will give us
Right.
time to follow our heart. And it's
Mm.
never so low that we get so pissed off that we go and throw those mother out of office, right?
That's right.
You ever notice it's always right there.
Mm.
Every time it gets bad, they give us a bone. Every time they give us too many bones, they take something away.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with Christian Sundberg. He's quite a massive online influence. He does multiple talks on his pre-birth
Oh, I
memories.
watched I watched his interview. Yeah, he's
Oh,
great.
he's incredible. He really
Yeah.
is. And he made a video with me talking about consciousness and the collectives all tuning into the news, and that it's all just negative, and we have a certain level of responsibility to not focus on just the negative. We should be shifting our minds, our collective consciousness onto something positive, because the ones who are running the world know this, and they want to keep us on that low vibrational level. But if we all
Yes.
were aware of what's going on, and we are coming aware, which is, it's a
Yes.
great time to be alive right
Even
now.
subconsciously, people are coming
Yeah,
aware of this.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, you know, turn off your TV, turn off your news, be mindful of the music that you're listening to, because
Mhm.
it's just more ways to just be
There are
controlled by.
there are binaural beats in your music,
Mm,
and binaural beats. This is something your brain picks up that you don't. Can
mm,
either be positive or negative. And
yeah,
the meditation music. That's the stuff that people use to astral project and do whatever. It can also be
yeah.
used to bring torment to you.
Yeah. See, I'm really
So if there's a
skeptical of
positive,
that.
there's a negative.
Mm. So they say listen to binaural beats, but I'm not so sure I want to listen to binaural beats. I'd be more happy if I'm in my own space in quiet as nature intended,
Mhm.
rather than
Right.
trusting in whether or not this is a thing I should be listening to. Because based on what I've listened to, we are energy and vibration. I don't want to be swayed by the wrong type of vibration. So,
Well, no, you'll know because you'll feel a pleasantness to it. Because there are
mm,
ones that are really intense, and I've tried them, and the first thing in my mind was negativity and stuff. I was scared, so I turned it off. But
yeah.
listen to something that's really anything you listen to that makes you feel good and at ease is
Mm,
not going to be
yeah, that's
um
right.
but here I would suggest try this. Get a pair of earbuds and go to sleep with something like a mellow type of meditation music, and you'll
Mm,
see that your dreams are so vivid. I mean, you're going to want to do this every night. And what it does is it naturally releases the DMT chemical in your brain. You know,
yeah.
um, when people take like the mushrooms, it artificially does it. That music naturally gets your brain to release it. That music is really music of the universe.
It's interesting you bring up DMT because is that the same molecule that's released in the brain when we pass away?
I believe, yeah, the spirit molecule. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
believe
so
so. I don't know for sure, but they call it the spirit molecule.
yeah, yeah, and it's something that we can actually access within ourselves. It's not something that we have to ingest or take. It's already there,
Right.
so you can
That's a
access
fact.
that. Yeah.
Yes. And it can be done with that music, with
Mm.
the right music. I mean, that music was how I came out of my body, was listening to that.
You said you couldn't get
I
further than your room, was that right?
right. Well, what I never told anybody this for some reason. Um, it was happening every day, like kept getting more and more and more and more. And then finally I come out of my body. So the next night I try it again. And I always told everybody it ended with there, but it didn't. The next night I try it again and I'm sitting there. Now instead of all of a sudden seeing out my third eye, all of a sudden I hear a voice standing right next to me. It says, Jim. That's all it said.
Wow.
And I was too scared to open my eyes. Like I knew it was right there. And I just stayed there, and that was it. And then um I know nobody was up there to, it wasn't my dad or somebody saying my name. I could tell it was right there. And
Yeah.
I was scared. And after that it stopped. So, I guess they take you to a point where you get scared and then they give you time to, so the last few months I'm out there talking to this guy, telling him, listen, I'm sorry, I'm not scared anymore. Come back, all that type of stuff, but that's when yeah, after that, I stopped meditating. And then that one happened about a year later where the pipe busted in the house. I told you that story.
Yeah, yeah. Did you want
Like
to mention that again or bring that up for the viewers who may not have seen it? Because I think your podcast was when I first started my channel. So would you mind bringing that up again?
yeah,
Or
yeah. So, what happens is, like, even in my past life regression, I could feel it coming because I would get tired. Like I would start getting tired and I have to go lay down. And this was like 7 o'clock at night, and I had to go lay down. And as soon as I shut my eyes, it's variations of light, like brighter and darker light, and you see these images, and I'm seeing at first human faces, like one after another. And it seemed like when I tried to focus in on them, then it would change. Like it didn't let me see details. It was just like this, and then when I went like this, it would change to another one. So I wouldn't,
mm,
remember exactly what I saw. But I do know they started out human, and then they got extraterrestrial, like very, like things I've
yeah,
never seen them on any type of television or anywhere. So then I opened my eyes and it stopped, and I'm back in my room, and I shut my eyes again. And now everything I thought about was instantly, I could see a picture of it. I remember thinking of a soccer field and I'm watching people playing soccer. And
mm,
then I would think of this, and it kept going, right? And I don't know what, if I was in some kind of a zone where I was half asleep but awake. And all of a sudden, I'm boom, Jim, wake up. Like my father's banging on the door, screaming, come help. And I go out there and the pipe under the house explodes. Like just, and it was 45 degrees out, right? It wasn't cold enough to freeze. I know you don't have Fahrenheit, but it has to be 32 to freeze, right? So it's
Yeah,
well above
right.
that. It's well above that. And not only that, it had gone down to like into the teens multiple times, and this pipe didn't, you know. So to my dad, it was a coincidence.
Yep.
Now and to a lot of other people I've spoke to, those psychics, you are manipulating energy. And
Yeah.
so, the pipe is copper, so it has electrical current running to it, and it went to its weakest point and exploded.
Yeah, and then there was a time
So,
with your car, wasn't there? I think you ran out of fuel or something and you were able to drive it for some time. Um,
oh no, that was the cars. That was the psychic told me that I was willing my cars to run. The one was a transmission that
mm,
even the guy, he took it to multiple mechanics and was like, that should have blown 100,000 miles ago. It's not possible physically
mm,
that thing was operating.
yeah.
And then a few years later, the same guy, I have him, my car's overheating, but it won't blow up, right? It won't
Mm.
overheat. So for 2 years, I just said, yeah, whatever. It blows up, I got that one. So I take it to the same friend. He says, I'll fix it. He pulls the water pump off, and the housing on the inside is like it's a big fan. It's like this. It's about that big, like the size of a softball, and it pulls the water or the coolant into your engine.
Mm.
It's gone. Okay. He goes, it's just gone. He goes, all you see is this little stub. And he goes, you have literally been driving your car for 2 years without coolant running through the engine, right? This is after the transmission. So he's going, what is going on? And he goes, not only that, Jim, what happened to the fan? He goes, did it just disintegrate into nothing? He goes, if it went this way, it would have went into your motor and blown it up. And if it went that way, it would have clogged something up and blown it up. He goes, it's just gone.
That's incredible.
Oh,
You'd already had your awakening. So at this point, your
no,
angels were
this was
watching
long
you.
before the awakening. This was
Oh
long. I
gosh.
was I was like 18 when the transmission. And I was maybe 22 or 3 when that that car. So
Yeah.
what he was telling me was that I already have psychic powers. He's saying you just don't know it, and he was explaining to me
Right.
situations I was already doing. He's like, you just
Yeah.
look in your past, and he goes, just analyze what happened, man. And instantly, like, wow.
That's incredible. Have you ever thought, Jimmy, of learning these psychic abilities? Have you ever thought to see, a spiritual teacher in order to unlock more potential?
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. So what I'm doing now is, again, like a lot of messages, to get involved in charity,
Mm,
some kind of charity work,
mm,
and also for remote viewing, to learn how
right.
to do that more. So Joe, when he comes down, he's coming here to Jersey. I want him to first clear my property of negativity, whatever. This property's never been cleansed ever. I've done this
Mm,
house, but not the property. I just want to do everything first and then get into that, um, knowing that there isn't any kind of like, negative entity screwing with
mm.
me.
Yeah,
I
right.
start getting messages, and the messages are tainted somehow by negativity. I want to make sure that's going first,
Mm, mm.
So that's my goal for the next, couple months, is to start getting into learning that.
Yeah, and I
I
hear
mean,
you're
I've
going
already done it, so.
yeah. And you're on your way to be working with Joe now. He mentioned that in the last podcast. So do you know what it is you'll be doing with him?
Oh, you did? You mentioned on the show?
He
Yeah.
did. He said he spoke to God for the first time and that he was guided to have you jump on board. So did you want to talk a little bit about that or?
Sure. I mean, I really
Because I
don't know
think that
exactly.
that might even be another message from your guides. This is your next step to level up in your ascension and becoming a better version of you because talking to you today, you've changed so much since the first time I've spoken to you, and you're so
Oh yeah,
knowledgeable,
you think so?
and you really, and you also look good too. I've noticed you've lost a lot of weight as well. You've
Oh
been
yeah,
doing something,
yeah.
so, and you're glowing.
I lost 45 pounds since that past life regression. Something happened there where I, you ask me my opinion is I had a connection between myself and my guides and angels that,
Mm,
was reestablished in a stronger way. And after that, I wasn't able to eat anything that was processed or meats or anything. Like I can eat them, but the next morning when I wake up, I'll be like, oh my God, my stomach is killing me. And first thing I'll think is, what did I eat? And I'm like,
yeah.
oh man, I did eat that crap, it comes out of a box. So that's one is I changed my diet to where I'm just eating fruits and vegetables mainly, like 90% of
Yeah.
what I eat. And then I still eat like a little bit of meat because, my whole life I ate
Iron,
meat.
whatnot.
I can't just throw it out like cold turkey.
Mm,
But I'm trying to get on to a vegetarian type of a diet now. And
mm,
also what did happen, I wasn't able to drink alcohol anymore.
yeah.
Like alone, like I didn't remember this, but Joe had to remind me of this because I haven't listened to that tape of that regression in a while. I've noticed that like a friend of mine passed away suddenly, and I said, I'm gonna have a drink for him. And I was by myself. I drank maybe 6 ounces of this vodka and got immediately sick. Long before I ever got any buzz or felt nothing at all from it, I got way sick. And
Yeah.
every time I get sick, except I noticed, um, like I only tried it a couple times. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Mm,
like I'm trying to drink every day. But I would have a drink on Thanksgiving and Christmas with my cousins, and I could have it and not get sick.
yeah.
And then just last St. Patty's Day, I did have a couple of them and didn't get sick. So I can have a social drink, but if I'm by myself and I decide, oh, I'm just gonna go get, it's never gonna happen. It's
Yeah,
just
it's like a lesson to you to not hide what's really going on, because when you're alone, what purpose do you have to be drinking on your own? And that's because maybe it's
right.
like, when you're bored, you want to eat. If you're depressed, you want to eat or drink or whatever it is. So
Yeah,
it's like your
exactly.
message to you is not right now. This is not what you should be doing. You
Yeah,
should be either meditating,
they
resting, being out in nature,
they
no drinking right now.
exactly right. They're like my big brother now. Just nah, 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 nah. So,
Yeah.
and not only that, the other thing that happened, very important to tell you this, was the food I was eating for those 2 years prior
Mm,
was always cooked by a family member with a lot of negativity in it. Okay.
right.
Um,
Interesting.
she, as I was broadening my spirituality and kind of moving in a upward trajectory,
Mm,
the more upward I got, the more this family member hated me. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, just despised me. That I couldn't avoid her anymore. I did. I locked myself in a room and just listened to this stuff for 16 hours a
Yeah.
day. And that pissed her off. Like it just more and more. So um when somebody is cooking your food, preparing your food,
Mm,
actually, if you're eating meat and stuff, how that animal lived and was slaughtered, and then the
yeah.
person who prepares your food is also negative. That
Mm,
is in your food, and when you consume it, it's in fact you're signing a spiritual agreement to accept whatever energy that brings,
right.
right?
And that could
You
have the
sign the
negative.
contract.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
That's why alcohol is a spirit, right? And you are taking on that, whatever it is, whatever spirit is in there, right? So the same thing in the food. Now let me tell you this. I have, except for once in my life, never been over 200 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Never. Okay. I got up to 225 pounds just eating that woman's food. I was on heart medications. I was on, oh, I mean, I had, when I was out of there, I had a bag of pills like this. Okay.
Wow,
This is all the way
yeah.
up until last July when I took that past life regression.
Mm.
And I don't drink, don't do all this. And from there, all that weight is just was gone. Now I'm back to being what I'm at 180 something, 85, which is where I was always at my entire life.
Yeah,
So,
incredible.
oh, and then I'm not on any of them drugs,
That's amazing. So you've changed your
not
entire
a one.
diet, your lifestyle,
No heart
obviously.
medication,
Yeah.
nothing. Now here's the kicker. Okay. So last month I go to the doctor. And for since I've been going there almost 3 years, every time they bring me in and going like, what's your problem? And I say, I'm these anxiety attacks. I kept saying this.
Mm,
Aside from the pain, anxiety. I keep telling them. And so the last maybe the nine months, I was going every morning for up until almost noontime. I'd go through this horrible, horrible, like from the moment I woke up, it would just hit me. So finally I talked to John Glassball after about 6, 7 months of this, and he tells me you should meditate when this happened. And to me, I'm like, how am I supposed to meditate when I got a tornado going off inside me? Right.
yeah.
So he goes, that's what you should do. And I'm like, well, maybe that makes sense. Maybe that's why I don't find the answer, because I'm not doing the obvious. So I do this. Well, that took it from maybe like an 8 or a 9 in the morning of anxiety down to about a 5, right? It was there, but it was manageable. And then all of a sudden, like a day later, Joe, just out of the clear blue, says, hey, my guides told me that you were in a lot of trouble, and they told me that you need to clear and align your chakras, right?
Wow.
Like your guides came out of nowhere and told him this, and here this was my biggest problem. So um, that's what I did. Was I laid down, and before meditation, I what I imagine is an infinity symbol going through each chakra. Now
Mm,
it goes down into Earth's central sun, up through the chakra, into heaven's energy, bringing God's love back down into that chakra. And you do that through each chakra, all 7, and then imagine all the negativity in your life in a Merkaba, which is
the
or a ball of light.
tetrahedron.
Right. Yeah. The ball of light, whatever it is. It'll keep that negativity in there. And then you imagine it floating up into the sky and you explode it and release that energy back to the universe. Right.
Yeah.
Well, since then, anxiety has been, not a problem. I wake up like normal. Okay.
Yeah.
I go to this doctor and I tell him, hey, I figured out my anxiety problem. Great. What'd you do? I said, I cleared and aligned my chakras. Oh, holistic medicine. That's great. He went right back to doing his thing. Did not ask me what I did, how to do it, nothing, so that he can relay that information to other people so that they
Right.
can heal themselves, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can do this for free. You
Right.
can do this anywhere in a jail cell, anywhere for free.
And it's funny
That man's
because
not going to turn around and tell nobody that. Whose best interest do they have in mind? I mean, that
definitely
should
not
tell you,
ours. Mm.
right? Why? That is some of the most powerful information that I've ever learned, ever. And
And
that
how are
man
you
just, oh, that's
now?
great. As far as the anxiety is
Yeah.
fine. It's still, yeah. It's whenever what happens is now when I find myself getting angry too fast, like if something happens to trigger me and I'm not able to stop myself from
Yeah.
reacting,
Yeah.
um, my anger starts to go or my anxiety, I'll know that there is something attached to me, and then I'll go
Yeah.
back and do that again.
I feel like
You
this
should do
is,
it every day, but I wait until I feel things and then do that.
yeah, well, I was just about to say, I feel like that's like my message to do this because I just had a doctor's appointment yesterday actually, and you know, as I said, I struggled with depression. He gave me a prescription for anxiety medication. And I said to him, I said straight up, doctor, I know that I might have this, but I will not take this. I will not take this because I
Yes.
know that it's not going to help me. It's actually going to cloud my brain.
Wow.
And he looked at me like,
Good for you.
you need this. And this is what you're telling me right now. And this is the second time you've told me because I remember we spoke about this on the first podcast. And so now is the
Oh, we
time
did.
for me to do exactly as you just mentioned and for free.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell you this. One of those girls where I told you I went out after the hawk,
mm,
she's Buddhist, so she's really in, she's been meditating her whole life. And she was on that same medication, like whatever it was, and it's a narcotic, very addictive. I've been on them.
mm,
So she calls me and because she notices that I don't have to take them. She knows I have anxiety problems, but so she came to me, like I said earlier. People will
right.
see this
People
in you,
come to you when
right?
they need to. Mm,
Right. They'll see that you did it, and that's what she did. She goes, "What do you do?" She's like, "All this. What is it you do to?" She's excited to not take medication for anxiety. So I explained to her this, right? Well, she's a character, this girl. So as I'm explaining it to her, she's doing it. I don't know this, right? So literally, she goes, I'm texting it, and all of a sudden she goes, "Oh my God, I just saw this vision of an angry dog just walked away." And I'm like, "You're doing it now?" She goes, "Yeah, now I'm tired." I says, "Yeah." I says, "I didn't expect you to be doing it as I'm teaching it to you." So that's what she saw, and she didn't have to take her anxiety medicine that day, you know?
Wow.
So
Yeah. So
that's
that
big
angry
thing.
dog was her anxiety leaving her.
Yeah, she's trying to figure out what exactly that dog, who that dog is. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what she saw leaving. And yeah, she didn't have to take her anxiety meds,
So
and
do
then she
you?
got tired. So I told her, well, I should tell you now before
Yeah.
you should do this at night,
Yeah.
before you go to bed,
I will.
because it will, when that whatever negativity leaves you, it's going to just drain. It's actually energy leaving.
Yeah.
You'll feel it. And me, when I did it the first two times, I got sick. I got
Right.
really sick the next morning. Like, and finally, when it went away later in the afternoon, the psychic who taught me that called me and said, "Well, you can do this yourself." And I was feeling better, and I took this painting that I did, this nasty painting, and I put that energy into the painting, and I lit it on fire, and instantly I'm sick again. Like, and
Yeah.
she explained that negativity had been feeding off of my negative energy. It was actually causing me to have negative energy so it could feed off of it.
Mm,
So by pulling it away, I'm essentially taking this food source and killing it. And that angers the shit out of me.
yeah.
So she had to actually put this thing in some kind of another Merkabah to keep it away from me. And it's basically addiction, is what it is.
So in order for us to do this technique, it should be done in before bed, really, because we're going to be exhausted and we're going to need that rest.
But yeah, I know with me, especially that, because what she did after she was done, she goes, "All right, now go to bed," and hangs up like real
Yeah.
quick. And it was weird. I'm going like, and within minutes I was asleep.
Right.
And then late and in the morning I woke up. I was so hungover. It was that feeling, like alcohol withdrawal feeling.
And so again, could you just remind us what you do? So you get the infinity sign, and do you
Oh
start from the
yeah,
bottom up or from the bottom
yes.
down?
I do from the bottom, your root chakra. So what I do is I got this thing around my neck, if you can see it. It's got all the
Yeah.
colors on it. So you memorize the general location of them and the colors is what
Mm,
I do. And I do it a few times. you know, in through Earth's central sun, up into heaven, bringing back God's love down through my chakra. And I imagine it clearing darkness out of me,
Mm.
right? Just imagine being filled with light and darkness moving away. And I know that when I do it, I can actually feel a sensation in them areas when it's going
Yeah.
through me. You know, I can feel like a vibrating type of feeling.
Right.
All and I do each one. I go from color to color up until your crown chakra is above your head, and then I do the Merkle ball and
And
release
then
that
send it
energy
back into the into the universe.
to the
Yeah.
universe. Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
I am working on now, um, with my back pain. I need to, because I've seen people get in a meditative state where they can talk straight to your guides and archangels, but they
Mm.
can go past that and talk to pain that resides in your body. Like my back issue has been going on for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
And things like that are negative attachments as well that are
Mm.
in you, right?
Yeah.
So this I found out in the past life regression is a bleed over from my past life when I was that Indian girl. Okay, because
Yeah.
she was arched over like this with a cane. You know, she walked like Yoda, like
Yeah.
so. Because Joe said, show us a life that has to do with what you're dealing with now, and they showed me that woman's back.
Mm.
So I'm of the opinion now that it's up to me to release whatever that is in me. You know,
Yeah.
from that lifetime bled over to this, and now I have to get in there and release it. So what they do is they get you to that, and you can actually talk to that part of the body, to that whatever you want to call it, a demon or a negative entity. And you can see when they do it, their whole voice changes, and they start talking like this. And what they are is they're afraid to go into the light for whatever reason. They're so
Yeah.
stuck here in this, and like a lot of drug addictions, when you pass away from overdoses, those people stay here and they dwell in this.
Mm.
And they attach themselves to other drug addicts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
they get all down. As soon as you take some of the stuff, you're down in that cesspool. Um, so what they do is they will talk to them, explain to them what they're doing, and then send them to the light. Tell them there's nothing to fear. God's judgment is nothing to fear. You judge
Mm.
yourself.